All right, let's dive in. What if I told you the blueprint for America wasn't really drafted in 1776, that it was actually a project 500 years in the making? Today, we're going to trace that incredible story.
So, where did America's founding ideas really come from? We all kind of think of things like liberty and self-government as popping up in 1776. But what if their roots go way, way deeper? That's the big question we're tackling. And believe me, the answer takes us back centuries. Seriously? To get the full picture of the United States, we have to rewind the clock. And I mean, way back. Our story actually kicks off more than 500 years before the Declaration of Independence was even a glimmer in anyone's eye. So think of our journey today as having 4 major pit stops. We're starting way back in 1215 with the Magna Carta. Then we'll jump across the ocean to 1620 for the Mayflower Compact. After that, we'll see how the English Bill of Rights in 1689 totally set the stage for what was to come. And finally, we'll get to 1776 and how a little pamphlet called Common Sense became the spark that lit the whole revolutionary fire.
Okay, first stop, 13th century England. We're talking about the Great Charter. Picture this. A bunch of nobles are just completely fed up. They've had it with the king, King John, and his absolute power. So they decide to do something about it.
Now, what they were trying to do was incredibly bold for the time. Their whole goal? To limit the king's power. I mean, this document introduced some truly revolutionary ideas. Things like limited government, the idea that a ruler isn't all-powerful, and the rule of law, which basically means everyone, and yes, that includes the king, has to follow the law.
And out of this comes this hugely important concept, due process of law. So what does that mean? Well, it just means there are fair, established rules that have to be followed. The government can't just throw you in jail on a whim. It has to respect your legal rights. This is like a fundamental shield against tyranny.
And this one line from the Magna Carta, this is really the heart of it all. No freeman shall be taken or imprisoned except by the lawful judgment of his peers. Just let that sink in. For the year 1215, this was an absolutely earth-shattering idea. The idea that your freedom depended on the law, not just the mood of the king? Wow.
And here, this is where you can see the direct connection. Like its political DNA, you can draw a straight line from that document in the 1200s right to the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. The exact same principle, due process, protecting life, liberty, and property, gets woven right into America's own blueprint.
All right, let's see how this idea starts to travel and evolve. We're going to fast forward about 400 years and hop across the Atlantic. A group of pilgrims, they land way off course from their original destination. They find themselves in a place with no government, no rules, nothing. So, what do you think they do?
They write something called the Mayflower Compact. Their goal was pretty simple, really. Create a government, completely from scratch, just to make sure there was order and to protect everyone's rights. And by doing that, they basically laid down the principles of self-government and the social contract. The idea that a government's power comes from the people agreeing to it.
And this idea of a social contract, it's so powerful. It's basically an agreement. People agree to be governed, and in return, the government agrees to protect their rights. Power doesn't come down from a king on high. No, it comes up from the community.
This little compact becomes America's very first real-world experiment in government by the people. And you can hear the echo of this radical idea, self-rule, ringing loud and clear in the U.S. Constitution, which famously starts not with "I, the king, declare," but with "we, the people."
Okay, for our third building block, we're heading back to England. The year is 1689, and Parliament is about to make a major power play against the monarchy. And the result is a document that's going to spell out very clearly the rights of the people.
And just take a look at some of these rights. No taxation without representation. The right to a fair and speedy trial. Freedom from excessive bail and cruel punishment. Do any of those ring a bell? They absolutely should. These weren't just vague concepts anymore. They were specific, written-down protections that now applied to more English citizens, not just the nobles.
You just can't deny the influence here. It's so clear. When the American founders sat down to draft their own Bill of Rights, about a century later, you can bet they had this document right in front of them. So many of these protections were basically copied and pasted, almost word for word, right into the U.S. Constitution. This thing literally shaped the core of American civil liberties.
Okay, so we've got all these powerful ingredients simmering away, right?
We've got limited government from the Magna Carta, self-rule from the Mayflower Compact, and individual rights from the English Bill of Rights. But it's all just kind of sitting there. It needs a catalyst, a spark, to set it all off. Well, in 1776, that spark arrived in the form of a guy named Thomas Paine.
See, Paine's goal wasn't to write some fancy essay for philosophers or kings. No way. He was talking to everyday people. Farmers, shopkeepers, blacksmiths. He wanted to convince them to support independence. And his argument was so simple, yet so powerful. He basically said, look, isn't it just common sense that we should govern ourselves instead of being bossed around by some king an entire ocean away?
And the impact? It was absolutely explosive. We're talking 500,000 copies sold. Now, to put that in perspective, the entire colonial population was only about 2.5 million people. That reach is just incredible. It was basically the 18th century version of going viral. Everybody was reading it, everybody was talking about it, and you better believe everybody was debating it.
This little pamphlet completely shifted public opinion. It took all these big ideas that had been brewing for centuries and boiled them down into one clear, urgent call to action. Paine's arguments were that final push that galvanized the colonies. It's what directly influenced the Second Continental Congress to take that huge, fateful leap and vote for independence.
So, let's just quickly recap that whole journey. Step 1. The Magna Carta establishes limited government. Step 2. The Mayflower Compact introduces the wild idea of self-government. Step 3. The English Bill of Rights writes down and protects individual liberties. And finally, Step 4. Common sense comes along and provides the spark that turns all of those ideas into an actual revolution.
So you see, this incredible journey, spanning centuries, created the blueprint for a whole new kind of nation. But here's the thing. The story isn't over, not by a long shot. These core principles, limited power, self-rule, individual rights, they're still at the very heart of the conversations and debates we're having today. Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. How would these historic ideas, born so long ago, continue to challenge and define who we are right now?